Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Backlog Bunker. This week I played a bunch of different things for a bunch of various different reasons, but they were not Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'm sorry to disappoint. And speaking of disappointing in quite a few ways, I played Pokemon White over this past week. Disappointing in one way, in that I wanted it to be good, and it wasn't. I still hate Pokemon, surprise surprise, but yeah, I thought the game was bad. But disappointing in a different way, in that the whole reason I even played it was because I felt the need to scratch a Pokemon itch, mostly because I see everyone loving Pokemon Legends ZA, and I know for a fact that I'm not gonna like that game, so I'm not playing it. And beating White was basically the equivalent of rubbing a mosquito bite. Like, yeah, it made it feel a little bit better, but it's not the same thing as scratching it. I don't feel the need to go into my entire Pokemon diatribe on a Backlog Bunker. If you want to read that whole thing, I made a review on Backlog that pretty much describes my entire problem with Pokemon in my Pokemon White review. To put it shortly, what it always comes down to is that the only thing I really like in Pokemon is the battling, and the battling is only engaging against real people. And I can only really get good Pokemon for battling if I do it in a place like Showdown, where I can actually make Pokemon that I like, as opposed to doing it in the real game where I have to raise them. Playing through White, I liked my team of guys, they were all Pokemon that I like, but I don't like that they didn't have abilities that I didn't want, or they had stat distributions that I didn't want, or that they evolve in ways that require me to have things that I don't have access to. Gigalith is one of my favorite Pokemon, but I can't fucking use it in the version of White that I played, because I was not able to trade. My team was still mostly guys that I liked, but at the end of the day, the feeling of going on an adventure with all my favorite Pokemon could only be rubbed and not scratched, because at the end of the day, White was a game that doesn't have everything I want in it. Up to this point in my life, I've played Gen 6, the Gen 6 remakes, Gen 7, the Gen 7 remakes, and White now. And let's go. And White is the first time I've ever chosen a starter in one of these games where I basically didn't use them. Now, of course, you could call Let's Go and the Gen 3 remakes extenuating circumstances, because those games give you explicit incentives to use your starters. But the point I'm trying to make now is that Samurott, despite being one of my favorite Pokemon, just didn't see much use in my team past, like, the first two gyms, because the whole thing with Pokemon and gyms is that they all just use the one type. This is why Pokemon battling is not at all engaging outside of multiplayer, because if the gym wasn't weak to water, I didn't use Samurott, and I didn't need to. Samurott could have been helpful in one of Black and White's 50 billion fucking caves, but those caves are also filled with Boldors. Boldors who have Sturdy, meaning I have to spend 50 billion PP to even kill them in the first place. I say all this to say that Pokemon's whole back and forth when it comes to type effectiveness is really fucking cool when it comes to multiplayer, and really uneventful when it comes to single player. And Pokemon White, like many Pokemon games, does not make any effort to make this any more engaging than it usually is. Because all the other stuff you're supposed to find engaging in a Pokemon game is all the shit that I don't like the story, which is usually made for babies, or the catching, which is just RNG. I plan on playing Omega Ruby again for the first time in like 10 years, soon-ish, so I'm wondering if that'll scratch the itch. If not, hopefully I don't feel the need to scratch it anymore, or hopefully it does, and I don't ever have to play another Pokemon game again, because they're sure as shit never gonna release a good one. And now that I've played a pre-Gen 6 title, which is when everyone claims the series used to be good, I can finally say that they never have made a good one, and they probably never will. On to a different game that I'm not surprised to have disliked, Resident Evil 2. I played the remake for that on stream, and unsurprisingly, I didn't find it very interesting. It's made me realize that I probably just shouldn't even bother with the whole survival horror genre, because they're just Metroidvanias, right? The act of running back and forth to put the square peg in the square hole has never really been engaging for me in any Metroidvania, and now even less so when I have to worry about combat, resources, and inventory space. Especially not when I don't even like the combat. In terms of the direct minute-to-minute gameplay, I actually don't think it's all that bad. I like the idea that if you take more time to get a headshot on a zombie, you are risking yourself getting damaged, but it's more consistent than, getting body shots and making them stay down temporarily. However, the problem comes in that even if you do shoot them in the head, that's not consistent anyway. Unless the head explodes, any zombie that you put down is just going to potentially get back up again. On top of the fact that even if you perfectly place all of your shots, it takes a different amount of shots to put down a zombie every time. A particularly notable moment was when I was going through the west side of the police station in a section where I hadn't boarded the windows. I fought one zombie, moved past him, fought two zombies in the hallway right on top of each other, but right when I managed to put those two down, which took more bullets than usual, the first one got back up and hit me from the back. And then, when I tried to deal with him again, the two I just put down also got back up, they surrounded me, and then I died. While the inconsistency of zombies does wonders for the horror and the resource management parts of the game, I'm sure, they make the combat feel so fucking shitty because it makes me feel like nothing I do matters. But then again, it's a Metroidvania, so even when I'm not doing the combat, the whole rest of my time with the game is spent walking back and forth putting square pegs in square holes, resulting in an experience that I liked 0% of. maybe I got a little dopamine hit when I figured out a puzzle, if I was lucky. Or if I was actually interpreting my button presses correctly, which, for those who don't watch my streams, refers to a moment on stream where I was doing a safe cracking puzzle. Well, it's not cracking, I was just putting in the code, and the game just wants you to turn the thing left, turn the thing right, turn the thing left again, or the other way, whichever it is. And my interpretation of it was that I was supposed to turn it to a number, press A, turn it to a number, press A, turn it to a number, press A, which was not correct, obviously. I think in my head, I was automatically abstracting it to a video game where it's like, well yeah, in real life, you just turn it left, right, left, but in a video game, you have to input the number first, duh, but, you know, that's not the case. Which reminds me of something that is timelessly relevant that was said by Aaron Eagle-Raptor Hansen on his Zelda sequelitis, which is that the more you create situations that are analogous to real life in a video game, the more you have to stipulate on when it comes to control. The player can't just input 3 numbers, they have to turn it like it's a real save. And don't misunderstand me, I'm not criticizing Resident Evil 2 for doing it like this. I get the sneaking suspicion that Resident Evil 2 freaks are just as bad as Yakuza freaks, so stop typing your comment right now. I just find it to be an interesting observation that Resident Evil 2 is confident that the player has interacted with the combination lock enough times to intimately know how to operate one in a video game. But that's really all I have in Resident Evil 2. Like I said, I just didn't really like it. Now, as much as I'd like to have a positive topic for this week, I just don't really have one. The only thing I played that I actually liked was Halo 2, but I haven't really played enough of it to have anything to say about it, aside from the fact that I liked it at all, which was not a thing I could say about Halo 1. However, our weekly topic does have to do with Halo, so it is relevant. As of about a week ago, Halo Campaign Evolved came out with its announcement. I almost keep calling it Combat Evolved Remake or something like that every time I refer to it, because Campaign Evolved is an awful name. And so, the weekly topic is less of a question and more of a statement this time around, that being, you're not really allowed to praise good remakes on the basis of being a remake, and disavow bad remakes on the basis that they're remakes. As far as I see it, remakes exist on about a 5-point spectrum. On the most positive end of that spectrum, you get Resident Evil 4s and Persona 3 Reloads. Reload is just the case of a remake that most people like, however, Resident Evil 4 is the case of a remake that everyone loved, which is bizarre to me, because everyone already loved Resident Evil 4, so why the fuck did it need a remake? But at this point in time, keep in mind the fact that people were very antagonistic to the idea that games should not be getting remakes, because again, everyone liked Resident Evil 4. Then on the minor positive end of that spectrum, you get Metal Gear Solid 3 Deltas and Silent Hill 2s. Remakes that see some pushback, but are generally still liked, but end up eventually falling under the radar because, well, remakes just don't have as much staying power as the originals do. Delta was only 3 months ago, and you certainly don't hear people talking about it now, do you? On the complete opposite end of negative remakes, you get the GTA 3 Remastered, or whatever it was, where everyone hated those. And mysteriously, you start to hear much more of a prevailing idea that remakes aren't always good. Which brings us to Halo Campaign Evolved, which I believe exists on the minor negative aspect of the spectrum. While there certainly exists praise for it, the overwhelming opinion seems to be that it's a bad idea and that no one likes it. And now to be clear, I am not trying to present the Goomba fallacy here. I understand that there are a lot of different people saying a lot of different things. However, I find it very interesting that a lot of people who see praise Persona 3s and Resident Evil 4s are now on Halo talking about how remakes are shitty and it's ruining the art direction of the original game, and etc. I think the gaming community at large is shooting themselves in the foot by accepting Resident Evil 4s and Persona 3s, but not Halo Campaign Evolved, because it seems like people don't understand the fact that every time you say yes to a remake, you're saying yes to more remakes. You don't get to decide which games do get remakes, they're always just going to go for the games that are going to farm nostalgia. I would like a remake of Kid Icarus Uprising, but I would not like a remake of Fire Emblem Awakening. However, if a Kid Icarus Uprising remake came out and I bought it, I would be implicitly saying that it's okay to make a Fire Emblem Awakening remake because, I mean, of course I am. All that the companies can see is that I bought a remake of a game that I like. It's just not possible for them to divine which games we do or do not want remakes for. I wonder how long it'll take the gaming community at large to realize that the whole remake culture we have going on right now is a losing game. Though speaking of people realizing things, this isn't really related to the weekly topic, but I still want to talk about it. I find it very interesting how much pushback I'm seeing online about the whole you control the buttons you press idea after the Halo 1 remake got shown. Because when Halo fans started complaining about the fact that there was sprint in it, a lot of people started responding with the whole you control the buttons you press image. However, unlike the years and years I've been seeing that image online, this is the first time I've ever seen anyone but myself present pushback to that idea. Again, I'm not trying to commit the Goomba fallacy. I'm sure these people are out there somewhere before, but I just think it's fucking crazy that this is the first time I'm ever seeing them in the past, like, 5 years since Halo, well, no, not Halo, since Doom Eternal came out. Even outside the context of Doom Eternal, I have always been against the idea that options in a game aren't bad just because you don't have to use them. So where the fuck were these people when I needed them, To get slightly back on topic, yeah, Halo Campaign Evolved looks like it's going to be a huge civil war when it comes to Twitter, both in the time leading up to its release and when it actually does come out. So I'm excited to see what comes from that. Partially because, much like the whole controlling the buttons you press thing, it is insanely cathartic to see people say things about Halo that I've been saying for years about other games. For years! Particularly Sonic, because obviously. I only wish that I didn't have to live vicariously through Halo discourse, but I'll take what I can get. That's it for this week. Get out of here.